Okay, so hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of our podcast. And today's guest is someone who made headlines early. He took over a college program at just 21 years old, and now he is leading the charge at Saint Vincent College, building a culture of grit, growth, and Bearcat pride. So please welcome Coach Brian Niemiec. How are you
Thank
doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. Very happy to be doing this. And I think it's a great idea that you're putting this together, and happy to be on.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time participating today. So to start off, let's rewind for a second. You became one of the youngest coaches in NCAA history, which is huge. So how did your journey lead you to that opportunity?
Yeah, it was definitely an unconventional path. I always kind of knew growing up that I wanted to do something when it came to coaching. I love sports, but it's one of those things that that you can't play forever. And I
Mhm.
kind of realized that coaching would be a path to stay involved with it. Um, Unfortunately, my coach my senior year passed away midway through
Oh,
our season, and it opened up a door that I was able to step up and fill in. So again, it was a very unconventional, very unfortunate way for it to happen. But we just kind of tried to carry on his legacy. He meant a lot to a lot of people. He was the
hmm.
coach here for about 30 years before me. So just
Wow.
trying to continue a lot of his traditions and you know treat the athletes the same way that he did.
Hmm.
So that pathway into it.
That's a great story. That's awesome that you're trying to um, contribute to something that you were part of, and bring the philosophy of someone who inspired you in your days. So, how would you tell your age has influenced your coaching style and connection with the team? Because, most of the coaches, they're pretty old, so there's huge gap between like coach player. So, how is it in your case?
Yeah, it's definitely influenced it quite a bit. The first handful of years that I was coaching guys that I played with. So
Hmm.
it was a much different dynamic. It was kind of hard for me to crack the whip and come down hard on them because we were friends. We were friends
Hmm.
going into it. And I kind of kept that similar relationship with the players going forward. I look at it like a big brother role for me. I'm not quite their parents' age like a lot of college students
Hmm.
or older than that. I'm more of, close to their age, and it's made it a lot easier to relate to them. I was
Hmm.
pursuing more graduate education while they were doing their undergrad stuff, so I understood the struggles of a student while they're also struggling as a student. We
Hmm.
had things that we could share that commonality over. So it definitely helped a lot in the early going, more so than it would have hurt it. And I know that was kind of a worry going in, was am I going to be able to be this authoritative figure? But because I was so close with them, and I remained very close with my players, even to this day. I never really had to be the authoritative figure. They just knew there was that kind of mutual respect, and I trusted them to do their job. They trusted me to do my job, and it's really benefited us greatly
Hmm.
culture wise.
That's awesome. And if you don't mind me asking, so you're trying to bring someone else's philosophy, right? What exactly it is about? What's your coaching philosophy right now?
Yeah. So like I said, I harken back to my previous coach Enrico Campi. He really stressed the development of the whole person.
Hmm.
We're not just college players at this Division III level. Few and far between are we going to make it to the pros. So it's more so about getting that whole experience while you're in school. Tennis is awesome. Tennis leads to some great things, but the biggest thing it can do for our student athletes is open doors. And
Hmm.
that's something that I kind of keep in my coaching philosophy, that if you show up and you work hard every day and you give your best, things are going to get done for you. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, I tell my players time and time again, go out there, give me everything that you have. I will give you everything that I have. And at the end of the day, as long as we did our best, we have to be happy with that result. And luckily for us, it's come with a lot of wins over the years.
Hmm. That's great. And if you had to describe your coaching journey, or just your experience so far in a movie title, what would it be and why?
Oh, just a movie title, I would probably go with, it's been a long, strange trip. Um,
Hmm.
It's only been 8 years, but I also look back at it and I say, oh my gosh, it's been 8 years. Uh, and we've gone through things like the COVID shortened seasons and virtual recruitment because I couldn't have students on campus and all sorts
Mhm.
of things like that. We've celebrated marriages of former players. We've gone through tragic losses with former and current players. Just it's been a very long, strange trip, even though it's only been 8 years so far.
Mhm. Yeah, 8 years sounds like not that much, but then when you look back, damn, that was 8 years of ups and downs, different, as you said, different experiences, celebrating different aspects of other people's lives, which is amazing. So you said you always wanted to be related to tennis, but as for right now, looking back, if you weren't a tennis coach, what do you think you would be doing right now?
Oh, if I had to guess, I would probably be working in, digital marketing for a regional casino, because that is actually what I do for a full-time job. So,
Hmm.
coaching is just a part-time thing for me. So I've always kind of had to live that, real person life on the side of coaching as well. So
Interesting.
fortunately for me, I know exactly what I would be doing if I wasn't coaching.
So digital marketing for casino, is it correct?
Yes, yeah.
How did you get into that?
It was, kind of paired with my undergraduate degree. I did communication and digital media. It's
Mhm,
what I studied, and I got a great education at Saint Vincent that opened some doors that I can kind of do anything that I wanted to in that digital marketing realm. And we had a casino open up very close to where I live, and there was a position, so put my name in the hat for that, and here I am, just plugging away, doing some digital marketing for a casino while I'm coaching tennis.
That's so random. Like whenever you said it, I was like, wait, did I hear it correctly? That's so funny. Do you have some of the aspects that you bring from your full-time job, maybe some lessons that you've learned that you bring into your coaching experience and vice versa? If there's anything from your coaching experience that you bring into your full-time job.
Yeah, definitely the coaching experience relating into the full time, again, real world job. It happens quite a lot. Having to work with a team and be dynamic. In the tennis realm, I have 20 different personalities I'm managing every day, between our men's and women's teams, and just being able to know how to kind of pull which strings will do what, and get the appropriate response from players. Taking that into a corporate environment, it's really benefited me a lot, where I know how to build these relationships interpersonally. I'm on a team that's spread out throughout the country, and we work very remotely with each other, but I'm able to make these relationships and handle things that might be kind of like a curveball for some people. But again, in college coaching, especially in the D3 world, nothing really surprises me, no
Mhm.
matter what happens. And then, vice versa, coming from the corporate world and shifting that into the coaching. The biggest benefit for me has been we have an incredible team social media presence, because that
Mhm.
was the role that I started in, with my
Yeah.
corporate position. So I really take pride in what we put out there for our team's content. And that's just something that kind of bled in from my real life into the coaching life.
That's great. Coming from like social media, how much do you think it's important for teams to have good social media presence?
It is crucial to succeed on the social media front. I know that teams can do really well without a great social presence, but the teams that you see that are doing the best, they like to celebrate it. And that's one
Mhm.
of the big things with college athletics is, giving the student athletes that experience and giving them something to point at and be like, hey, look, I did that. And if that
Mhm.
means putting out a graphic that says, hey, player XYZ just broke the team record for wins, and that's all it is. That's super simple, but the player's going to love that. His friends are going to,
Mhm.
recruits are going to see, hey, look, this team's doing great things and they're celebrating it. Um, you know,
Mhm.
it's just absolutely crucial to have a good social presence, especially in this day and age.
I completely agree with you. Just coming back, to the days when I was looking for colleges, first thing I would do when I got an offer from someone, or like if I was looking in certain schools, I would go and check their Instagram page.
Yep.
If there's nothing there, maybe you would be like my last option. But if some teams had like a lot of presence and seeing different videos of like how the team environment is, team culture is, I think it plays a huge role right now for recruits as well to make a decision, like kind of see what their experience is gonna be like. So that's amazing that you're trying um, to be on the same level as current generation. So that's awesome. And I also did some of the video content for our Instagram page. And now we're gonna have three freshmen in the upcoming fall, and two of them told me that, yeah, well, I saw your Instagram page and it was so funny, and I was like, I want to be part of something like that. When you compare to someone who's probably some schools that are probably more
Yeah.
close-minded, I would say about it. It's different. So, what are some of the strategies for social media presence do you implement right now for your team?
Yeah, like I said, one of the big things is celebrating those accomplishments. If we have a player that gets a conference award or a player of the week or sets a record or does a personal best, getting it out there and letting people know and letting them know quickly. We don't want to
Mhm,
sit on that accomplishment and wait to get a graphic posted. We want to be in the moment and spontaneous with it.
mhm,
And that was something that, luckily we got to do it a lot this past year. My women's number one player won conference player of the year, so we got to get some stuff out quick for that. Both my women's and my men's teams set program records for wins in a season, so we got to put graphics out for that quickly. And we had our men's number 5 player set the program record for all-time wins. Letting people know about that,
mhm,
and they loved it. Video content is huge, and we've never really dove into the TikToky type videos, where we're following those trends. I do like to keep it a little bit brand safe with that.
mhm,
But getting videos of the clinching point for a huge match and throwing up a clinch cam for it, that's something that we love to see. And our sports information department has been phenomenal with it. I'm very good friends with both of our sports information director and our
mhm,
digital content director. So having them at matches to capture some high quality footage that they can put together a highlight reel, and it comes out a little bit later, but still just captures that environment. Our players
mhm,
love it, our student athletes love it, I love it. So it's been huge to implement those types of strategies. Video is king these days.
mhm. Yeah, and it's we can see a lot of team culture in social media presence, but what would be something that people might not be able to see on Instagram, but something that really defines who you are?
Yeah, I think the number one cultural thing for both my men's and women's teams is just the close knit community that we have. Um,
Mm-hmm,
I know that kind of sounds like the corny answer that everybody's going to give, but I mean, it is truly special at Saint Vincent. We're a Catholic Benedictine school, and we abide by these 10 hallmarks, and one of them is that community feeling. The second that you step on campus, I've had recruits tell me that they just feel so welcomed. Uh,
mm-hmm,
Whether it's something small, like somebody held the door for me that they didn't have to do that, or I had a professor or one of the cafeteria workers or somebody just asking me how my day's going. That part of campus is super close, but then once you get into the team, it just becomes even closer. We don't have tiffs, we don't have fights. People kind of, they know what their role is and they're willing to accept it. People know that, hey, if I want to move up in the lineup or if I need to get challenged, so be it. That's just the culture that we have, that people will accept their role, and they love it and they support each other. The women's side has been great. I know it's kind of the stereotype that women's teams and girls high school teams, they just get real catty with each other.
mm-hmm,
uh, that's just never been a problem with me when my women's team. It has been a phenomenal 7 years with them. I did start 1 year late with them compared to the men, but
mm-hmm,
it's been a phenomenal 7 years with them, that everybody is just so friendly with each other. And it's not really a fake niceness that you'll see either. It is genuine support and love for each other. And
mm-hmm,
it's hard to convey on social, like you said, but once you're a part of it, once you see it, it is just hard to not want to be a part of it.
mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the things that help them to stay bonded all the time?
I think it's, again, like I said, that close knitness of the community, that we're kind of all living by these principles and whatnot. Um, we have a very small campus. We have about 1,500 undergraduate students. So everybody on campus. About 60% of the students are athletes too. So everybody's going to kind of know, that common struggle of, oh, we have 7 a.m. lift tomorrow, and I have this biology exam tonight. I've just really, really stressed, and coach is riding me at practice, but everybody knows that everybody can support each other. And I think that environment on our campus really helps the team even more so stay closer. They're always together no matter what they're doing.
That's great. Do you have like team bonding activities, or it's just like for the players themselves kind of figure out what to do with free time?
Yeah. So again, kind of talking back to about being the younger coach and in that same kind of generation as them, I make it a point to host team bonding activities. During our first week of the school year, we always have camp week, and we always kick off that or cap that week. We do a green versus gold inter squad scrimmage where it's
Mhm.
mixed doubles and all sorts of stuff like that. And then we come over to my house and we do a big cookout. We make sure that everybody's there. We're playing cornhole. We're having fun, eating some good food.
Mhm.
At the end of the fall season, we'll do a Halloween mixed doubles. Everybody gets dressed up. You get a partner. You coordinate those costumes and play a little bit of mixed doubles. Um, on our spring break trips, we have the annual mini golf outing. I will humbly brag, I'm a 6-time in a row champion of that with my team. Uh,
Whoa.
some say we cheat. Some say we cheat, but there's no proof of that. We're just very good at mini golf. But yeah, there's all sorts of bonding activities like that, you know, trying to give them a good experience outside of just playing tennis.
Mhm. What's your favorite memory so far since you became a coach?
I have
It can be on court, it can be off court related, whatever
I
you
have
choose.
so many that it's hard to pick just one. Um, I would say probably my first year coaching. Uh, I got to coach the conference player of the year, who was a great friend of mine when we played together. And to see him win that accolade on his home courts, with his whole family there, it was phenomenal. It was his last collegiate match too. And
Mhm.
then I would have to say, I'll give you a second one, and it was just 2 weeks ago. It was going to commencement and seeing this class of current seniors graduate and walk across the
Mhm.
stage, and getting to get pictures with them afterwards and just tell them how proud I am of them, because they have been through so much as a group. And just to be able to be there and share in their celebration was unmatched. I don't think it will ever be as good as it
Mhm.
was that day.
That's so awesome. Yeah, these are great memories for sure, and hopefully you can do it even more in the next years. Okay, let's move a little bit more towards like technical stuff. So, could you walk me through a typical week of practice during the season? Because I feel like a lot of people are biased about Division III schools, and they think that players don't do anything; it's just studying. So, could you please confront this statement?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a bad rap that Division III gets, that it's, oh, anybody can do it. You don't have to have any skill. Uh, which, there are some schools where that is the case. They want to put a team out there, they need 6 players. Uh, Most of the Division III schools, that's not the case though.
Mhm.
And that's us included. So a typical week for a student in season is going to look pretty similar for both the women's and the men's team. Our conference actually does our women's season in the fall and the men's season in the spring. We split it up just so we have a little bit more leeway and some more good weather. So that is a little bit different, but the week is going to look fairly similar for both teams. Um, we will have practice every weekday, Monday through Friday, unless we have a match. That's going to be 2 hours of practice each night. We'll do individualized work if players need a little bit more. If somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm really struggling with my volleys. I'm really struggling with return of serve," we'll work something out that either myself or one of the assistant coaches can get out there and work with them a little bit extra outside of those 2 hours of team practice. Um, each one of those practice days, it's going to be, some match play. We're going to do some drill work. We're going to do a little bit of running, a little bit of conditioning, just make sure that we're staying in that good shape, getting a lot of ball striking in. At the end of the day, that's the most important thing, is getting out there and hitting the ball.
Mhm.
On top of our regular practices, we're going to have lifting. When we're out of season, our players will work with our strength and conditioning coach 3 days a week. Here is where that Division III-ness kind of creeps in. It cannot be mandatory when we're out of season, so it is
Mhm.
all on the players to be able to get there and go. Our teams have been very dedicated. We have some great captains that they really they push the teams along and make sure that people are getting out there and doing the
Mhm.
optional lifts. Um, Once it's in season, we tamp that down. We're only doing 2 days of lifting during the season, just so we're not burning ourselves out. And Omar, our strength and conditioning coach, we love him. He is phenomenal. He'll make sure that people aren't getting overly lifted. They're doing more stretching, more dynamic work. Uh, Anything in season that's going to help us, get prepped for those matches. And once
Mhm.
it is in season, that is when it becomes mandatory. So people are still getting that conditioning in, even if they don't go to the optional stuff in the off season. Um, our weekends are pretty much always filled with matches. We do have every now and then weekday matches, but we try to avoid that as much as possible,
Mhm.
uh, just to avoid any conflicts with school and, of course, with myself working full time outside of tennis. We try to keep a lot of that on the weekends. So Friday nights, Saturdays, Sundays, we're getting out, we're playing our matches. A lot of conference matches. We're going to be within a 2-hour drive of campus. Non-conference, we'll go to different states. We'll go down to Maryland. We'll go out to Ohio. We'll go to the opposite
Mhm.
side of PA, which doesn't sound far, but it's like 6 hours. So we're getting around. We're getting out for matches. And again, those are mostly going to be Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Um, so that's kind of that 30,000-foot overview of what the tennis is going to look like.
Mhm.
And all the while, you're still going to your classes, you're still taking exams, you're still trying to find that social time with your friends outside of tennis. Um, but because we don't have a overly dedicated schedule where, hey, you're going to be on the court 6 hours a day or
Mhm.
whatever it might be, you can kind of balance it a lot better than you could if you were an athlete at a Division I or a Division II or an
Mhm.
NAIA type school.
Yeah, you mentioned 6 hours drive, and I can relate it a lot because whenever we go for a trip, I don't know, for example, let's take Texas, you can drive for 8 hours, you're still in the same state. Like, how is it possible? I feel like before I came, I really underestimated how huge the states are. And now, it takes forever and you're still in the same state. Or if you try to travel somewhere, it takes way longer than you expect. So, what do you think? Okay, it's just random question, but what's something that your players do during this long trips? In the van or in the bus, like whatever your vehicle is.
So we take a van, and I have the privilege of getting to drive that 12-passenger van everywhere we
Mhm.
go, hundreds of hours a year. But to pass the time, we have a handful of players, usually the ones that sit in the back. They'll sleep. They don't like to be bothered. They put their headphones in, knock out, and then we're at the match in 2.5 hours. They're fine. Then we have the middle row. They're usually on their laptops. They're doing some work, homework, whatever it might be. And then we get 3 or 4 players that are up around me. Uh, we'll talk. We'll chat strategy. We'll talk about what's happening in life. My women's team, especially, we love to play. It's called the association game. So
Mhm.
we pick a category, and it starts with an A, and then the next person has to find something in that category that starts with the last letter of that word. Um,
Mhm.
we've played hours and hours of the association game, and then of course the alphabet game, where we're just going through and naming things in the alphabet and trying to remember them. We had one a season ago that we could still, to this day, my senior class and I go through the entire alphabet and remember exactly what everything was. So all sorts of ways to pass the time.
That's so funny. I would definitely take notes on these games, so whenever I travel to, we can play it as well. But that's so cool that you're able to bond with your players so well. And I feel like it's the same structure, of the band seating in every single school. The people in the back, like they don't want to be bothered at all. Then middle row is like study people, nerds,
Mm-hmm.
and then front row are like the most party people
Yep.
on the team. Okay, so since taking over the program, what's one change that you're the most proud of implementing?
I think the biggest change from the time that I started, and this is mostly with the men's team, the women's team has always been pretty solid with it,
Mhm.
but just our academic success. we were always fine. We were, B average students. The men's team has been phenomenal since I took over. We have been an ITA scholar team, I believe, 4 times now, and should get number 5 this year. The
Wow.
women's team has also been a scholar athlete team for 4 years, and again should be 5 this year. But the success off the court when it comes to academics has been my biggest change with the program, and something that I'm very proud of.
Mhm.
Bringing in students that are going to be high academic performers, and then allowing them to be academic performers. Again, if they need to miss a practice because, hey, I have this exam coming up, by all means, you are here to be a
Mhm.
student before a tennis player. You need to take care of that. The tennis will come with it.
Yeah, exactly. Because student athlete, student comes first, and then it's about being an athlete. Okay, well, they were great answers. Now we will move more towards recruiting aspect of college life, and we will discuss what athletes should look for in a college. So, for my first question, I would like to know from your perspective, what are some of the things that are overlooked about Division III schools?
I think it is the ability to be that student before anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we preach about it and we talk about it all the time. Oh, it's student then athlete. Division III, the players truly do live that. If you want to be hyper focused on tennis and that's your entire life, you can do that at a Division III, but you're also going to have the resources to succeed academically.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I think a lot of players need to look for. Especially when players are just out there hunting for a scholarship so they can puff their chest out and say, I was a scholarship athlete. That's all well and good. But if you perform academically, you're probably going to get more money if you take an
Mm-hmm.
academic scholarship at a Division III.
Mm-hmm.
Really putting that hyper focus on the academic side is definitely something that gets a little bit overlooked for Division III.
Mm-hmm. Something I was surprised about the other day, I looked at like top 500 schools in the US, just based on different rankings. And I was surprised that pretty huge percentage of these schools are all Division III, which, indicates that they're very strong academically, but sports-wise, it's different focus and different priority compared to D2. So, what you're saying makes complete sense. So, you've been talking to different recruits, just from your perspective, whenever you were choosing a team, what criteria should be evaluated by the recruits while they're making decision where they would like to start their journey?
Yeah. I tell recruits all the time, you might love me as a coach. You might think I am an incredible coach. Don't pick this school just because of me. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure the school fits what you want. I've seen players that have picked a school because, hey, I love Coach Smith. I want to be a player for Coach Smith. And then 2 years into their 4 years there, Coach Smith is gone, nowhere to be seen, and there's a coach that comes in that doesn't align with them. I think it's like very important for a recruit to look at everything about the school. Yes, you might love the coach, and that might be the thing that tips you the scales in the favor of that school. But make sure that they have a major that you want. Make sure that the setting that you're in is something that you want. If you don't want to be in the snow, don't go to a school in the north. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't play, in the heat, don't go to a school in Florida. Look for what you want outside of just tennis, and definitely
Mm-hmm.
don't take a place just because of a coach.
Mm-hmm.
The coach can be the difference maker. They can make the experience great for you, but if you don't like the academics, if you don't like the culture that the school itself has, you're not going to have a
Mm-hmm.
good time, even if you are having the best tennis experience in the world.
That's so true. What do you think are some of the aspects that are important, but most of the athletes do not really think about it whenever they try to get recruited?
I think again, it's the financial aid piece. I
Mm-hmm.
see it in the recruiting groups on Facebook, and I get emails from recruiting agencies all the time about I have this player that's looking for athletic scholarship, and I look at it and I say, well, that's great, but their academics are really good too. If they would come and apply and go through everything the process wise, they might be getting more money if they came to us
Mm-hmm.
for an academic scholarship than they would if they go to a low level D1 or a D2 school that, you know, they're going to give them that athletic scholarship, which looks great, and they can puff their chest out again and be like, yeah, I'm a scholarship athlete. But really consider the financial aid. You know, it's a huge investment in yourself, and if you can save some money and still get a great experience on the court and in the classroom, there's no shame in going to something that's not a Division III or not
Mm-hmm.
a Division I or a Division II. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be crucial for recruits when they're looking.
Mm-hmm. That's a great insight. Yeah, a lot of people they just like try to chase, Division 1 for I don't know why to satisfy their ego, maybe like other reasons as well. But outside of financial aid, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who wants to start their journey in college tennis, what would it be?
Put yourself out there. You know, you can have a profile on, you know, whatever the recruit website is, or you can have posts on social media about, hey, I'm looking to get recruited. Put yourself out there and reach out to coaches. You know, if you're a domestic player that, you know, you really want to go to the college that's close to you and close to your hometown, go to one of their matches, talk to the coach. You know, if you're an international student and you say, hey man, I really like this college, and you can't get there to visit it, email that coach, reach out to them. You know, any coach, especially at the Division III level, that is worth their weight in salt, they're going to answer that email. They're
Mhm.
going to pick up the phone. They're going to answer that call. You know, if I see a student athlete that is reaching out to me and wants to be a part of something, even if they're not 100% saying, hey, I want to be at St. Vincent, but if they're
Mhm.
reaching out and saying, I want to play college tennis, would you consider me? That shows a level of commitment to bettering themselves that
Mhm.
you're not going to get from somebody that's just, they post their video up online and they wait for coaches to reach out to them. You know,
Yeah.
that's great, and you will get found probably. Uh, but if you can put yourself out there and kind of be assertive, you know, it's going to benefit your recruitment efforts tenfold.
hmm that's a mistake that I made whenever I tried to find the school because I listened to my dad and he said that, oh, you don't really have anything special about you, so like why would you email coaches and waste your time? So what I did is exactly what you said. I just posted video on YouTube with the hope that coaches will reach out to me, which I was lucky enough because my video went a little viral,
Mhm.
so it got the right audience. So I did have coaches contacting me,
Mhm.
and I don't regret my decision by any means. But I'm pretty sure if I was the one who would reach out to coaches by myself, I would probably get way more opportunities and way more options to choose from. So um, that's great that you're saying that. Yeah. And just another question that popped up in my head. So we were talking about social media. Do you have a lot of players that try to reach out to you through Instagram, DMs, and do you respond to them?
We don't get a whole lot through our social media channels. You know, I have the team account on both Twitter and Instagram, and then I have a coaching account on both platforms as well.
Hmm.
Surprisingly, we don't get a whole lot of, you know, players sliding into the DMs there. I do get emails from players, and like I said, I will always respond, even if
Hmm.
they look like something that might not be a fit financially, academically. You know, I'll respond and let them know, hey, I took a look at your video, or I took a look at your profile, and you know, it looks great, but here's some things that might be a holdup. If that's okay with you, yeah, like I'd love to talk to you more. Um, but you know, we don't get a whole lot on the social media front, which is a little bit surprising.
Hmm.
But you know, we will reach out to players on social media if that's the way that we can find them and get in contact with them. I
Hmm.
don't have any hesitations doing that.
Do you think it's like future of recruiting basically for athletes to reach out through social media? And do you think it's a good way to get in touch with coaches, or like email, like classic basic, is still the only one way possible?
See, tennis is going to be a hard one because, like you said earlier, you have a lot of those older, old school coaches that, you know, I don't even know if some of them work their email super well. You
Hmm.
know, so it's hard to say that social media is absolutely going to be the end all be all for it. Um, but I think it's progressing that way. You know, as we get younger and younger, you know, coaches in the ranks, and you know, the coaches that are young like myself currently that start to progress in age, you know, and stick around, who have that experience of social media,
Mhm.
I think it's going to start to take a little bit of a forefront there. I think email will always be number one, easiest one that, every coach has an email through their school. It's usually available on the athletic directory. Uh, Easiest way to reach out to a coach. But I think social media will be nipping at its heels.
Mhm. Just another thing to mention, that's so awesome that you respond to all of the people who try to reach out to you. Because I think for a lot of athletes, especially on email, you cannot really see if somebody saw your message, now if it was delivered, if it was read. So that's great when coaches can give a feedback, even if the player is not the right fit for them. So that's so awesome that you're doing it. Okay, so before we jump into the last part of our episode today, is there anything else that you would like to share about yourself, about the program, about your team?
I mean, I love being a Bearcat. Having my undergrad, my graduate degree there, coaching there for 8 years. The relationships that I have been able to make here have been phenomenal. And again, I attribute that almost 100% to being
Mm-hmm.
the tennis team. If you're going to be at Saint Vincent, I know for a fact you're going to make some great relationships. But if you're going to play college tennis anywhere in America, you're going to make some great connections, and it's going to open up so many doors for you. I don't know exactly what people are looking for all the time, but you will find it through tennis. You will meet great
Mm-hmm.
people, you will see great things, you will have experiences that you couldn't have even imagined.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great answer and a great way to talk about your team. Okay, well, we'll go into the last part of this episode, which is game, smash, or pass. Basically, I'm going to read you a statement, and you have to tell me smash if you like it, or pass if you don't really agree with something like that.
Okay.
So, for the first one, send in the exact same email to 50 different coaches without like personalizing it.
I'm gonna have a pass on that one. I understand it, and time wise, it can help get a lot of stuff out there. Um, but if you can add that personal touch, it can go the extra mile, and it can do wonders for you.
Mhm. I agree with you. For the second one, add in music on your recruiting video.
I'm going to go with a smash on that one. If there's music on it, it can kind of hit that algorithm right, and it can get to more people.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely that's a hard smash there.
Okay, okay. Making TikToks on a game day, like before the match.
I'm going to say smash. Again, it's about having some fun. As long as it's tasteful and it's not distracting or taking you away from your match, absolutely have some fun.
Okay. Picking a school just because it's Division 1.
Pass, hard pass. There is great competition at every level. You look at a school like a Carnegie Mellon or a Case Western, that they're Division III, but those guys they're bad dudes. They
Mm-hmm.
are out there, and they could beat a lot of Division I schools. So you can find that competition at any level.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Again, as we talked before, a lot of people underestimate the level of tennis in Division 3 schools. So, yeah, honestly, I would pass on this one too. For the next one, having your parents email the coach instead of players doing it themselves.
If it's the first point of contact, hard pass. If it is later on down the line and the parents have some questions, I would give it a big smash.
Mhm.
Whatever we can do to get that player and their family as much information as possible, I am all for. But if it's the first point of contact, I think it should be coming from the player.
Mhm. I agree. Yeah, cannot complain. For the next one, lying about offers to pressure coaches. Some coaches they will be like, "Oh, are you talking to anybody else?" And if people just say, "Yeah, I have like 10 other coaches who I'm talking to," but they're actually not talking to anyone.
Hmm. I I would give this a pass. I'm kind of bordering there. If you want to tell coaches that to put a little bit of pressure on them, by all means, but you got to live with the what you do. If
Mhm.
the coach says, "Well, that's great, you have 10 other offers," and they stop talking to you, you got to live with that. But if it gets you that scholarship or it gets you that spot on the team, cool. But I would still
Mhm.
say pass. Don't lie to coaches.
Mhm. Okay, so for the next one, cheating back on your opponents. So I'm not talking like when you actually cheat just because it's how you play, but if somebody cheats on you and you just start to cheat back on them.
Oh, I'm gonna give it a pass. I tell my players, be the better person no matter what. Um, have I seen my players and have I seen other players kind of hook each other back and forth? Absolutely. That's the nature of tennis, whether it's at college or juniors or even in the adult leagues that I play in. But I would still say pass. You got to be the bigger person. You got to try to do what's right.
Hmm. Especially, yeah, I don't understand these people who cheat all the time on the court. Like, how you can win the match and you know that you won just because you were lying to person that you played against. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
especially in college tennis. I mean, I understand some people try to get to professional tour afterwards, but for the most part, it's the best, happiest, funniest experience that we'll ever have with tennis. So it's really not that deep with, if you win or lose. Like in the end of the day, your sun is gonna be up tomorrow morning. Like nothing gonna change globally. So what do you think is behind this mindset of people who try to win in any ways possible?
I think it's just a competitive drive, and I'm going to be nice here to them and say it's a competitive drive that's telling them I need to win, and not some
Mm.
other weird, messed up personal or external pressures on them. Um, but I mean, I get it. I love to win, but I'm not going to cheat to win. you know,
Yeah.
you got to play to win the game. You got to play the right way. And I think I tell people all the time, the tennis gods will take care of you. You clip the net and
Mhm.
win a let cord winner. Always apologize because the tennis gods will
Mhm.
take. So,
Yep.
I think it's the same when it comes to hit calling a ball out that might not have
Mhm.
actually been out.
Yep. And for the last two will be not saying the score out loud.
Oh, hard pass. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, and it's always for some reason like the top two players on the court. They don't say the score. I'm like, please, these are such good points. I don't know what's happening. Tell me what the score is.
That's so interesting because I feel like whenever I played in juniors, everybody will try to say score out loud, but then I don't notice this like fine line, this next step when people just stop announcing the scores.
Yeah, it is so frustrating. I wish they could just have like a little buzzer that says it every point.
That would be actually pretty cool. Okay, for the last one, give a weak handshake after the match.
It depends. I'm going to say pass as a total. If you're just practicing with each other and it's like one of your friends, and you do it as a bit, easy to smash on that. But a weak handshake after a match against like an actual opponent, that's a pass. You got to have a firm
Mhm.
handshake.
Yep, I agree with you. Yeah, for the most part, doesn't matter how the match goes. Every single time it's like,
Yeah,
okay, we just made a handshake, I guess. Well, these were awesome answers. Thank you so much for playing this little game. And yeah, that was it for today. I really appreciate your time and participating. I enjoyed so much talking to you, getting to know you better, your program, your perspective on different things. So yeah, thank you so much.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. And anybody that's interested, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at SVC_tennis.
Yes, and for all of the listeners, I'm gonna leave a bunch of links below the video so you can get an access to social media and to the website, and contact information of Coach Niemiec. So yes, stay tuned for the next episode.